Of course, the annuity market has gone through some major facelifts over the last 5 to 10 years. One of them being the flexibility of the timelines that the plans offer. Prior to, I think just a few years ago, there was only a 10-year plan with annuities. So now what you'll notice, they have what they call a 7-year Zenith Growth 7. Of course, the Zenith Growth 10, which is the one most people were familiar with, and all cross annuities. And then, of course, now the latest one is the Zenith Growth 5. And so these are the years that it takes for the annuity to mature, and meaning that anything that you tap into prior to the end of these years, you could potentially face what they call early withdrawal penalties. However, the reason why I chose National Life again for this particular exercise is because there's a few things that National Life has put in place, and we'll talk about that in a second, that really is awesome when it comes to being able to tap into these resources. So the real thing and the key component, like I mentioned earlier, why someone would look at this particular product is because they're getting to that point in their careers where they're winding down, and they don't really want to keep their money in the aggressive market as it was, with the 401k and the stocks. And so, not saying that you want to come out, because obviously the market is always going to go up and down. It's going to rebound. It's going to self-correct and things like that. Your biggest concern, meaning the client that's looking for this product's biggest concern, is the performance of the market at the time of exit. Meaning you don't really like what you're seeing as you begin to wind your career down and prepare to come out of the market completely in retirement. So this is something that you would want to look at. It does offer the protection. Again, the growth is still there, because remember, even though these products are not participating in the market like your other products were, they are still being manipulated by the productivity of the market, meaning that as the market goes up, these products will go up as well. Another thing is, how exactly does the money work in these products? Some of these things you're very, very familiar with, the S&P 500, the U.S. fundamental balance indexing, and the global balancing indexing. So it's still working along the line of the index. And so that's why you like products like this, because it still allows you to have the same sauce, the same flavor of participating in the market without the risks that you may have been witnessing over the last few weeks. So this is why we love the indexing aspect of these annuities. So again, how exactly is the cash growing? Of course, with an annuity, you put a premium in. You may allot to just do a one-time drop in. Let's say your money is sitting in a former retirement account. Let's say you left an old employer. You have some money just sitting there doing nothing, maybe dwindling down if it's still in a 401k based product, and you're saying, hey, Ron, let's get this out of here. I don't want this. It's losing, right? So that's somebody that would be interested in that. Uh, then we would select some credit index strategies. Those index strategies, based on the previous slide, would kind of give you an idea. Do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be conservative? Do you want to be a little bit of both? Um, you can also add some other avenues. Use the 1 to 2 year indexing period, where you kind of strategize the way you want the money to play in the market per se. And again, if it's a positive change in the market, then of course you grow. And then of course, if the market starts to drop, zero becomes your hero. You won't go below the floor. So this is one of the main reasons why anyone would even consider an annuity, is because of the stop loss margins in there. That's what the real key is. And of course, benefiting from the index crediting strategies. There's also now with National Life, that's why I said I really like these guys. They added these boosters. These boosters cost maybe 1 or 2%, I think like 1%. And I mean, again, a booster is just that it has to benefit you. We show you what that looks like in the illustrations. If a booster makes sense because you're trying to make up for lost time, then so be it. You do it. Obviously, it has to be more worth it for you to do it than not to do it. Again, one of the main keys of this particular product is the capability to participate in the market up and the market down without the harrowing thought process of just losing everything you have. And so again, I know a lot of people say, yeah, but if the cap is capped at 11% or 12% and the market goes up to 16, 17%, Ron, I'm not going to benefit from that. I'm only going to get the 12%. And that is true. But I think the trade-off of zero being as low as you can go, I think that trade-off is worth it because at the end of the day, the one thing you want to make sure is this: at least the money that I put in here, right? My hard-earned money that I put in here, at least I can get that back. And unfortunately, in some of these other products, that cannot be guaranteed. Your money goes belly up with the rest of the money that's in there. Even if your employer is putting money in, you still a loss is a loss. I guess the loss is softened because it's you and your employer losing the money. So I don't know. That's up to an individual to decide that. All right. So what about the early withdrawal penalties and why I really love this particular product? Well, yes, there are going to be early withdrawal penalties, as you can see here, if you take the money out in year 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on what product you have. Of course, for this example, I used a 7-year product. But again, if it's 5 years, if it's 10 years, these penalties will be adjusted accordingly. But what I like about this product is that if you just happen just to need a few pennies, you can take up to 10% of the money that's accumulated in the plan prior to the 10-year, 7-year, 5-year without penalty. And you can start doing this in the very second year of the policy. So the one thing I like about this, and this wasn't always the case, once the money was in, that was it. You couldn't touch it for 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. So now, and I mentioned this before, National Life has it so that you can get up to 10%, and you can do that every year if you have to, right? So again, this is the beauty of it. And of course, also, you got to be careful about touching the money before the age of what is it, 65, so you have to still be careful about that. Um, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is the early withdrawal penalties can be offset if need be. Now, if you need all the money, you need all the money. If something happens, something happens. It is what it is, okay? But if you're able to work within the confines of this 10% and you can piece off of it if you have to, that's also a great thing. And that depends on how much money you plan on putting in the annuity. The last thing before I close out, I think is super, super, super important is, as we know, all annuities are not created equal. So the main thing is what happens after the annuitant passes away. Um, can these policies be passed on to the beneficiary? And one of the great things about National Life is that all of their annuities can be passed on. And that's a twofold passing on. Either you're going to pass on if you're doing a income product, meaning that you say, I want to pay myself X amount of dollars for 10 years or 15 years or whatever you decide. Well, if you determine a period of time, let's just use 10 years, that you want to pay yourself a salary, you will be able to pass on the remainder of those years to your significant other, your spouse, your beneficiary. So let's say something unfortunately happened at the 4-year period after you started being paid. Well, that means your spouse will now pick up the sixth, seventh, he'll pick up the remaining 6 years. So in year 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 will go to the spouse. Or that spouse could just take all of the money out right then and there and say, no, I don't want to do the 10 years, the remaining 6 years. Give it all to me. I'll take it all out. And so that's the one great thing about these types of policies, where you have that flexibility now to leave those plans to the beneficiary. And before we close out, of course, National Life Group, just being that type of company. Again, this is one of my flagship products in the Palm Beaches down here, of course, in Broward and in Palm Beach County, in the school district with the as well as the state employees of Florida. This is one of their go-to products. So again, great company, very, very, very reputable. And at the end of the day, again, this is something that you look at when you seriously are concerned about what markets are looking like now and in the near future. All right, talk soon. Bye for now.